Good morning, and I'm back to try to do another update on what I've been up to. This time I thought I'd stop and maybe go over a little bit about the software. I've been learning a lot about it. It's out there, it's good, but it's confusing. Uh, I'm talking about the MyRobotLab software. It comes in two flavors right now. Like most free software, you have the stable version, and then you have what this group likes to call the bleeding edge. The you might call it the beta version, where everything's still under test and changes are being implemented. So I thought I'd go through with some of that. And a good place to start out here is on the home page of the mMove group. This is Gail again. Hello, Gail. So to get to this software, the first thing you do is you go up on the menu and you go to How to Build My Robot Lab. And I'm covering it up with my own picture, so let me squeeze down a little bit, get out of your way. Go to how to My Robot Lab, how to start My Robot Lab. You click on that, you'll get a page change that takes you to the stable version. This is the most current stable version that they have, and they give you a tutorial or a how-to do the install. One thing to point out, make very clear, is that the Java version that they want right here, that's the latest one that you can use. The Java has gone to later versions than that. So they give you a link, go back and get this older version of Java. That's the one that they want, and that's the one that works. I know because I had a later version of Java already installed in my machine, and I had to go back to this one to get the stable version to work. They tell you also, it's designed basically to use with the Chrome browser. You're going to need to go get the Arduino software, and this is where you can go to get the latest version and download the latest stable version. And they walk you through a little bit. Okay, when you download it, decompress it, or unzip it, I should say, into a folder on your C drive, and this is what it's going to look like. And you'll see a start mu bat file. They tell you to double click that and start it, and that begins the install. In many places they tell you, go get a cup of coffee because this is going to take a while. And it does. There's a lot to be installed here. But it does it all by itself. And when it's all done, then they tell you to go back and double click on that same bat file to restart it. But this time, instead of installing it, it runs the program for you and comes up, and then you go about life. And it does come up in the simulation mode, ready to go. So if you put your headset on, your mic on, you can talk to the simulated robot that appears on the screen. And you can tell it, lift your right arm, and it lifts its right arm, and and ask what's your name, and you can give a name to the robot, all that good stuff. But the interface was not to my liking. I sure didn't like the interface. I'm going to leave the rest of this alone because this tells you if you want to start using it for your servos and stuff like that, how you have to go in and change the file. But if you can get it basically installed and started and coming up in this virtual mode, you've done everything right. The install went great. Now, to go along with this, at the very top they say, hey, if you want to know what the latest and the greatest is, click here. And that'll take you to the mMove 2 software, MyRobotLab, and they call it mMove 2. internally. So I had to check it out. So I went there and checked it out, tried to do the install, and things didn't work right. So I went on to the group and I asked the group questions. This is what I sent to them. Okay, I screen captured what kind of errors I was getting. And here's the old, this right here, this is what they call the swing GUI. That's the old version. The stable version will look like that. Over here on the far right, this is the new web GUI that the latest and the greatest, the bleeding edge as they call it, will install. Well, I was only getting half of the menu structure, and I was getting parts of the old coming up. So it was very confusing. And I asked questions about it, and I did get good feedback. Okay, the first thing they tell you is, oh, you're using the new version, so now you have to update. It requires Java version 11. So I went back, uninstalled Java at 1.8 and installed Java 11, which is what I had to begin with. But I went back and I installed that again. And I was still getting some messed up actions. And so when I went back and said, hey, things are still kind of messed up, they told me, oh, okay. One thing, let me point out for you here. I did kind of mention this. When you install the original or the stable version, they say put it in the C drive, right? C drive, and create a folder called MRL. And then you saw that everything that it put in there, and it had that start mu bat file. Well, when you install the latest and greatest version, which I put in a folder called MyRobotLab, guess what? That start mu bat file was there. If you try to use that, things go screwy. So I went back to the group and I said, hey, what's going on? And they told me, oh, well, you can't use that. The latest and the greatest doesn't use that. It won't work right. And so they tell you, look, just go ahead and make your own directory, right? Download it, unzip it like you did the original, okay? Then do the old-fashioned Java install, right, from a command prompt, which I did. And the install went faster because a lot of the same files are used and they're already installed, so it skips over them. But it puts the new stuff in that it needs. Then they said, okay, when that's done, then you go to your basic folder and you type in Java jar, right, without the install. And bingo, up it comes and it runs, and it works just fine. So just to let you know, in this transition, there's still stuff that's weird that's happening. But it is not a stable version. They tell you that up front. But I went to it. Man, do I like it. So let me see if I got it here where I can show it to you. Oh, okay. Yeah, my intent was to just start it up for you and let you see it. So let's go to a command prompt. I did discover that since I'm going to do this a lot, if I write my own bat file, which I have right here, okay, this works. So that I don't have to, type it all in over and over again. So you can see I start out my own user folder here. So I change directory to get back out to the C drive, and then I change directory to get into the proper folder, and then I type in that Java run this jar. Okay, so that's what I'm about to do. Give it a few seconds. I know this seems like a lot of dead time, but it'll be up here in just a second. There we go. And if you notice there, my web browser opened a new tab, and it now has the web GUI active. And it tells me I'm running the latest and the greatest version right here. Okay. And it has a menu item called Intro. So when you go to Intro, move myself up out of the way a little bit. Well, that's going to be in the way too, over here. Okay. Now, if I push on this symbol, it gives you a block diagram of the serial interface that it uses. If you're just going to use what they've done, you're not going to pay much attention to that. This gives you an introduction to Arduinos, tells you a little bit about the program you're going to have to interface with your Arduino cards. This gives you an introduction to Python and a link, to some tutorials and how to get started with Python. This gives you a link that actually takes you to the home page of MyRobotLab.org. Okay, and that's separate. See, this is the website for the software, where this is the website for the robot. So on the robot, you're going to get all about the plastic parts and how to hook it up, and questions about what are we doing with the robot. And a small mix of, hey, I'm having a problem with MyRobotLab. But the main support for the software is their dedicated site, MyRobotLab. So that's where this, I thought I took you back to the right one. There it is, quick start. Okay, if you go back, this is their site. This is where you go if you want to get the bleeding edge. And you can look right here, and it tells you the latest and the greatest installed, version that you can install. And that's what I'm running right now. They have the documents, the forums. This is where I went to get help. And they're pretty good. It's a pretty good group of guys. They got along good with all my newbie questions, And that's one of the problems that you have with these websites, is that you get newbies asking the same questions. I did try to look them up. I do the search and everything that's courteous, so that you don't burn these people out. But that's their dedicated site. I wanted you to see that. So I'm going to close that up and get rid of that. This will tell you a little bit about the servos and how to hook up a little servo on it. We're not going to go into great detail on that. The one that's really important is the fingerprint. If you do the fingerprint, bingo, there's the real interface right now. This is alive and well, and so much easier than all those tabs across that swing GUI. I learned that you can break those apart and reorganize them and all that, but still, that was a pretty hairy mess to look at and figure out their color codes and stuff. This breaks it down real nice. Right? If you want to do speech, you go to speech. If you want to do voice recognition, you go to the ears. If you want to play with the hand, you go to the hand. The most central one is the robot itself. If you click on the robot, then you'll get this section over here. Now, I'm going to start some things up, and I want you to watch what happens over here. See, as soon as I clicked on that fingerprint to open this web page, I created a new menu item here called IO1. Why they chose that, I don't know, but they did. Playing with this was confusing, and I did discover that if I wanted to use it in the simulation mode, that if I went up here and I clicked on this load full script, when I clicked that loaded a bunch of things and did everything automatically, and it comes up in the virtual mode. But you can't talk to the robot yet. And, like in the old version I was telling you, you could tell it raise your right hand and it would raise your right hand. Well, now you have to slide servos around and do it manually. But they'll get it. They'll get it back to recognizing the voice. But I wanted to use the software to test the finger that I built. That'll be my next video. So I'll give you more detail on that. But this will get you into the virtualized mode. When you run that full script, the virtualization gets turned on, the simulator gets turned on, and the window pops up with the little simulated robot that you'll see, and the servo mixers get turned on, and everything works in the simulation mode. But what I wanted to do was use the actual servos. So I played around and I found out if I say under services, if I say start all, the magic starts to happen. And you'll need to study maybe a little bit about the services to get more in depth. But everything you do requires a service. So if you're going to use a servo and you're going to control an arm, if you're going to talk at a COM port, okay, if you're going to talk to the or use the microphone and speech recognition, you'll need a service for it. So all those things have to get started before you can do anything. So if you just push start all and watch over here in the left column.
Starting mouth. Set language back to English. Chatbot loaded. I may start other components. Please wait. Starting is. Starting head. Starting mouth control. Starting left arm. Starting left hand. Starting right arm. Starting right hand. Starting torso. Startup sequence completed.
Now you see over here in the left-hand column, everything got a service started for it. So that was nice. And I figured that all out. Now I can start my servos.
Starting head. Starting mouth control. Starting left arm. Starting left hand. Starting right arm. Starting right hand. Would you like to do a search for it?
It was looking for something it didn't know where to find it. So then
I thought it was too.
This is a really, really nice interface. I love where they're going with this.
You've done right. What do you like most about it?
If you're new, I would suggest this is
and
what
you
you
will
should try.
receive.
With that, I'm going to shut down. I'll go in more detail with what I'm doing here with the software when I do the video on the finger, which I may do later today, or I may wait till tomorrow.
Where are
My
you?
wife has things she wants to do too. All right?
What in her reminds you of yourself?